Star Wars 7x7, episode 2187. Hey, that's a Star Wars number, 2187. So let's talk about this special number in Star Wars lore. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So, it was bound to happen. We were bound to arrive at this day, assuming that the podcast continued for nearly 6 years. We covered the use of the number 327 on episode 327. We covered the use of the number 1138 on episode 1138, and now here we are at episode 2187, and it's time to look at the uses of this magic number in Star Wars movies. And as it turns out, it is not as frequently used as those other two. In fact, out of all 11 Star Wars movies, it only appears in 5 of them, and one of the references is actually the same reference across 3 movies. That one's probably the easy one to guess. That would be Finn's designation, his Stormtrooper designation, FN2187, right? So that appears in The Force Awakens, in The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker. And that's 3 of our 11 movies. I will tell you that it's not anywhere, at least as far as I know, or have been able to find in Solo: A Star Wars Story or in Rogue One. If it has been buried in either of those 2 movies, then it has been done in a very tricky way. As far as the original trilogy, well, you go right to the start with the original Star Wars, aka A New Hope. That's the cell that Princess Leia was in on the Death Star. She was in the cell 2187 in detention block AA-23. And that, of course, is where the number first comes from. As to where it is in Revenge of the Sith, well, see, this is why I say that I feel like maybe there are other instances hiding inside Star Wars movies, like there's a reference to a cell block 4227 in Rogue One, and that one I'm like, well, 42 is 21 doubled, but the 27 doesn't seem like 87, so I'm not sure how that flies in, but there are sneaky ways that numbers are occasionally inserted into Star Wars movies, like 1138 appears in The Empire Strikes Back when General Reichian says, take Echoes 10 and 11 to Station 38, 1138, right? So yeah, it's got to be in other movies somewhere, but it hasn't been discovered as of yet. The most compelling one that I've seen for the prequel trilogy, and you have to really be thinking about this one, is Order 66. How could Order 66 have anything to do with 2187? Well, 87 minus 21 is 66. Yeah, right? That seems like it's too coincidental to be a coincidence. And the backstory on 2187 in general goes back, of course, to THX 1138, George Lucas's first film, the very experimental avant-garde film, if you will. It was based on a short that he had done, which had a longer title, which was Electronic Labyrinth THX 1138 4EB. Yeah, wow. And that takes place on one specific day, on May 14th, the year 2187, and May 14th happens to be George Lucas's birthday, surprise, surprise. But it goes back even further than that, because apparently there was a short film done by a guy named Arthur Lipset called 21-87, and he did it in 1963. It was a collage film of snippets that he found in his work with the National Film Review Board or something of Canada. Actually, let me get you the actual name. The National Film Board of Canada. That's what I was trying to say. And it had a very strong effect on Lucas as a student at USC Film School. He said that it was the kind of film that he wanted to make. It was off the wall. It was abstract. That was the sort of thing that he had in mind ultimately when he got to THX 1138 and a couple of other short films that he did in school before then. And so there you go. That's what I've got for the use of 2187 in the Star Wars movies. If you know of other ones in Empire, in Jedi, in The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, in Rogue One or Solo, heck, or even any of the 5 that actually have them. If you have other ones, then by all means let me know. Tweet them out at me at SW7X7 Podcast, or drop me a line on Facebook at facebook.com/SW7X7, or hey, home base for this episode of the show at SW7X7.com. And that is going to do it for today's episode of the show. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.